Okay, we are getting into EBS volumes. So we've seen that when we terminate our EC2 machines, they basically lose their root volume. And it happens that sometimes AWS will email you and say we have to terminate our instance because of a hardware fault or whatever. And so basically when these things happen, you will lose your root volume and this is not good, right? So sometimes you need a way to store your instance data somewhere safe on an external drive so that even if your EC2 instance is being terminated, well, your EBS volume lives by. And so that's the idea behind using EBS volumes. So EBS volume is a network drive that you can attach to your instances while they run, and it allows your instances to persist data. So we've been using them so far, but using root volume. So EBS volumes, what are they? They're network drives, okay? They're not physical drive. So it's a network drive and your EC2 instance will be linked to the EBS volume using the network. And the network, because it's used, there might be a little bit of latency, but usually not too much. And that means also that as a benefit from it, you can detach the EBS volume from one EC2 instance and attach it to another one very quickly. An EBS volume, when you create it, it will be locked to a certain availability zone, or AZ. And so basically an EBS volume, if you created it in US East 1A, it cannot be attached to US East 1B. Also, that means that to move a volume across, we first need to snapshot it, and we'll see what snapshots are in a second. EBS volumes, at a high level, they have a provision capacity, so you need to say how many gigabytes you want, and IOPS. IOPS are basically IO operations per second. And you get billed for all the provision capacity, okay? So this is something you say in advance how much you want, and Amazon bills you for it, whether or not you use the total size or the total IOPS. You can increase the capacity of the drive over time in gigabytes and IOPS, as we'll see as well in a second. So in an example, if we want to see a diagram, we have US East 1A, and we have 3 EC2 instances. The first one may have a 10 gigabyte EBS volume attached to it. The second one may have 2 EBS volumes attached to it with 100 gigabyte and 50 gigabytes. So as you can see, we can attach multiple EBS volumes to the same instance. And the EC2 instance number 3 doesn't have anything attached to it. Similarly, in US East 1B, we have only one EBS volume attached to our EC2 instance, and it's 50 gigabytes. So as you can see here, the EBS volumes are really tied to a specific availability zone, okay? And that's what I want you to remember. Now, there are different volume types, and the exam doesn't really ask about them, but it's good for you to know at a high level what they are. There is GP2, such as a good SSD drive that has a good balance between price and performance. There is IO1, which is the highest performance SSD volume, and therefore low latency, high throughput workloads, usually databases. They're very, very expensive. Then you're going to have ST1, which is HDD, so it's for frequently accessed, highly throughput intensive workload, so it's a very good fit for big data applications. And SC1, when you want to have big data application as well, but you need to access your data less frequently. EBS volumes will be characterized in terms of size, as we see in gigabyte, the throughput, megabyte per second, and the IOPS, number of IO operations per second. So when in doubt, always consult the AWS documentation. It will have the latest information on all these drives. And so far, we've been only using GP2 volumes. Usually when you create an EC2 instance, this is the volume you're going to use all along. So we can resize EBS volumes. It's something you should know about. It's new, it's out of February 2017. And so that means we can increase the EBS volume for the size, so number of gigabytes, or for the IOPS. Only for the IO1 volume, you can add more IOPS. After resizing an EBS volume, what you need to do is repartition your drive on your EC2 instance, and then your EC2 instance will be able to leverage the full new size of your drive. As I said before, we can snapshot our EBS volumes. So that means that we can back them up using snapshots. And snapshots will actually only take the actual space of the blocks on the volume. So if we have a 100 gigabyte volume and only 5 gigabytes are actually used, when we snapshot that drive, our EBS snapshot will only be 5 gigabytes. So basically the snapshot only takes the space it needs. So what would you use snapshots? Well, you would use snapshots for backups, for example, for ensuring that you can save your data in case of catastrophes, and for volume migration, so you want to resize a volume down, or change a volume type, or encrypt a volume. Those are very good use cases for snapshots. You can also schedule snapshots using some functions, and basically it will allow you to have a nightly backup of your data, which is quite nice in case of catastrophes again. Something that's extremely popular at the exam is called EBS encryption. And so we can create an encrypted EBS volume, and when we encrypt one, we get the following. The data is encrypted at rest, so that means that it's encrypted when it's written to the volume. It's also encrypted in flight between the instance and the volume, and you have nothing to do. As soon as you attach an encrypted EBS volume to an EC2 machine, they will communicate securely with encryption at flight. And all the snapshots you create out of this encrypted EBS volume are also going to be encrypted. All volumes created from the snapshots that are encrypted are also encrypted. So a lot of times saying encrypted, but this is quite a popular topic for the exam. So encrypted EBS volumes are at rest, in flight, snapshots are encrypted, and volumes created from encrypted snapshots are also encrypted. Encryption and decryption are handled transparently for you. You have nothing to do, okay? Your EC2 instance will still see data being unencrypted over time, but just so you know, it's encrypted at rest and in flight. Finally, encryption, as per AWS, has a minimal impact on latency, so you should absolutely use it. And EBS encryption leverages keys from KMS. We haven't seen KMS yet, but you'll hear, anytime you hear encryption, we will hear KMS. And so KMS encryption provides you something called AES 256 for the strength. And if you copy an encrypted snapshot, you can start encrypting that snapshot, and this is how you would encrypt an EBS volume that was first unencrypted from before. So again, just remember the very first part, data at rest is encrypted, and data in flight is encrypted as well when you use encrypted EBS volumes. Finally, there is sometimes a question around EBS versus instance store. So there are some EC2 instances that you can create, and they do not come with a root EBS volume, and they're called instance stores. And so basically that means that the root volume attached to that instance is physical. It's attached to the machine. So what you get out of it is usually a better I/O performance, but then there's a lot of cons out of it. So on termination, the instance store will be lost. You can't resize the instance store, so you can't make it bigger, and backups must be operated by the user. So overall, I would say if you get this, EBS-backed instances should fit most application workloads. Only people who need extremely high performance and have extremely good DevOps engineers can really use an instance store in the AWS cloud. Now, this last brain dump for EBS, things you should know. EBS volumes can only be attached to one instance at a time, obviously. As I said, they're locked at the availability zone level. If you want to migrate a volume across AZ, that first means you have to back it up using a snapshot and then you recreate it in the other AZ. EBS backups do use I/O, so you shouldn't run them while your application is handling a lot of traffic, otherwise you will impact the performance of your applications. The root EBS volumes of your instances will get lost when you terminate your instances, but this is something you can disable, just so you know. That's it for EBS volumes. This is not a very popular exam subject, but we still need to know about them, so I hope that was helpful, and I will see you in the next lecture.